The conference room on the fourth floor of a mid-tier commercial bank in Little Rock has a water pitcher on the table that nobody has touched. There's a phone in the center with a mute button worn down to the bare plastic from years of people pressing it before they said what they actually thought. A framed print on the wall, a photograph of a bridge, the kind of generic that takes real commitment. The carpet is the color of a decision made by committee sometime in 2009 and never revisited. The loan officer's name is Phil. Phil is 51, sandy-haired, the kind of man who has done this between 2 and 5 times a day for the better part of 2 decades. He has the precise energy of someone who is professionally warm, not cold, not unkind, just warm in the way a waiting room is warm, calibrated to the function. He places the document stack in front of you. 41 pages. There's a yellow sticky flag on page 28. Sign here. You look at the flag. Phil looks at you looking at the flag. He says it's just the personal guarantee. Says it like that. Just, like the word is a coat check for something you can pick up on the way out. The personal guarantee on page 28 states, in language that is impressively clear for legal writing, that if this business fails to repay $2,700,000, the repayment obligation transfers entirely to you, not the business, you. Your house, your savings, your credit, for a decade, maybe longer. Phil is already uncapping his pen and sliding it across the table. You pick it up, you don't sign yet, you read page 28 again. Phil waits with the patience of a man who has watched many people read page 28 and has watched all of them sign it. You sign it, your hand doesn't shake. You notice this with some interest. You genuinely expected it to shake. This started 14 months ago with a listing on a business broker site you found at 10:30 on a Tuesday night while your wife Dana was asleep and you were on the couch doing the thing you always did after she went to bed. The quiet, slightly guilty scan of opportunity that you'd been running for 3 years without fully admitting to yourself what you were looking for. Commercial cleaning company, established 2001, service area Central Arkansas, 74 recurring commercial accounts, owner-operated, revenue $1.8 million annually, reason for sale, retirement. You bookmarked it, closed the laptop. Lay in bed staring at the ceiling until sometime after 1 a.m. open the laptop again. Read the listing 4 more times. The owner's name was Bill Crespo, 67, had started the company with 2 vans and a residential client list he'd built door-to-door over 2 years in the early 2000s. Grew it the same way most real things grow, slowly, without permission from anyone, 1 account at a time. Medical offices, professional buildings, a school district contract that renewed automatically every 3 years and had for the last 9. Bill's back gave out in January. His wife, who had handled the books since 2003, told him she was done doing the books. Between those 2 things, he decided it was time. You drove to Little Rock in March. Not to meet him, just to look. You drove past 7 of his accounts, stood in the lobby of a medical building on West Markham and watched a cleaning crew work the floors at 6:15 in the morning. Nobody was managing them, they just worked, they knew what they were doing. They'd been doing it so long it was just what they did on a Thursday morning, same as any other Thursday morning. You drove home and built a spreadsheet that took 11 days to finish because you kept finding things you didn't know yet and stopping to go find them. Here's what an SBA 7A loan is, explained in the way nobody explained it to you before you needed to know it. The Small Business Administration doesn't lend you the money directly. They guarantee a portion of it, usually 75 to 85% to a commercial lender, which reduces the lender's risk enough to make them willing to give you money they would otherwise never give you. In exchange for this, the rate is set, the terms are fixed, and you, the borrower, personally guarantee the entire amount. Not the SBA guaranteed portion, all of it. What that means in practice, the bank has now done the math on whether your acquisition makes sense. They've looked at Bill's financials for 3 years. They've reviewed the account contracts. They've assessed the equipment. They've had a conversation with their risk people, and their risk people have said yes. That yes transferred to paper and filed with the SBA is the thing that made Phil's water pitcher and the bridge photograph and the worn mute button possible. What the bank has not done is guaranteed that the business won't fail. That part is yours. You put down 10%, $270,000. 4 years of savings, a home equity line you opened in November and didn't tell Dana about until December, and $40,000 from your father-in-law, who asked 3 careful questions and then said, do what you think is right in the way people say things when they mean I trust you and also please don't lose this. The business secures the other $2,430,000. Your signature on page 28 secures the business securing it. That's the structure. Clean on paper, completely legible, you understood it before you signed it. Understanding something and living inside it are different subjects. There is a woman named Patricia who has managed Bill's operations for 6 years. She's 44, does not waste words. When you met her, she shook your hand and looked at you for about 4 seconds with an expression that was not unfriendly, but was clearly evaluative. She'd been through a sale before. Not of this company, a previous one, didn't end well. She gave you the outline in about 2 sentences and did not elaborate. She wanted to know 2 things. Whether you were going to change the schedule structure and whether Domingo was keeping his route. Domingo Reyes, 52, has worked Bill's largest commercial accounts for 9 years, knows the after-hours entry codes for 31 buildings, knows which client wants the mop heads replaced on a Wednesday rather than a Friday, knows that the facilities manager at the Children's Hospital on University Avenue likes to be emailed a supply report on the 15th of every month, and if you don't send it, she will call, and the call will be brief and not entirely comfortable. Domingo is, in the language of the acquisition documents, a key employee. In the language of actually running the business, Domingo is the business. You told Patricia on day 2 that Domingo was keeping his route, that the schedule structure was staying as built until you understood it well enough to have an opinion about it. She looked at you again the same way she had the first time. Then she said okay and went back to her desk. That was the whole conversation, but something in the room shifted. You've worked with enough people to know when a shift is real. Dana found out about the home equity line on a Thursday in December, which was not the plan. The plan was to tell her over dinner on a Saturday when there was more time and the context could be built properly. The plan collapsed when she opened a statement that came in the mail and asked you calmly, in the way people ask when they're working to stay calm, what this was. You told her. She was quiet for long enough that the silence became its own presence in the room. Then she said how much. You told her. She nodded slowly, the way people nod when they're processing something rather than agreeing with it. Here's what she did not do. She did not say you should have told me. She did not say this is too much risk. She asked 3 questions. What's the worst case? What's the plan if that happens? And do you believe in this? The 3rd question she asked differently than the other 2. She asked it looking at you directly, waiting for the answer to show up somewhere in your face before you said it. You said yes, she said okay. And then she said, tell me things like this, before, not after. You said you would. You meant it. You've meant it before. You're going to try harder to mean it in a way that changes the behavior and not just the intention. Here's the thing about a personal guarantee that nobody says plainly. It is a commitment device. That's the whole point. Not bureaucratic, not the bank being aggressive. A commitment device. You have now made it structurally impossible to walk away from this thing without consequences that would reach into every corner of your life. The optionality is gone. The soft exit, the well, maybe it's not working shrug, the comfortable retreat, page 28 closes that door from the outside. And here's what nobody tells you about closing that door from the outside. You work differently when the door is closed. You make calls you wouldn't have made. You show up at problems earlier. You notice things you'd have let slide if there was an easy alternative to noticing them. The risk that felt like a weight when you were reading the document is a different thing once you're inside the business, carrying it. It's not lighter, it's just pointed. Every successful business owner you've ever admired has a version of page 28 in their history. Different document, different dollar figure, same fundamental moment of making it real enough to scare you. They don't talk about that page much. They talk about the vision and the timing and the market opportunity. The page is quiet. The page is the whole thing. Bill Crespo shook your hand at closing with both of his hands. He is, as it turns out, a man who shakes hands with both of his hands when he means it. He thanked you for taking care of his people. You told him you would. You meant it the way you mean things when you know they're going to cost you something and you're deciding to mean them anyway. He walked out of the attorney's office, and you didn't watch him go. You were already looking at the operations binder Patricia had prepared, color-coded, tabbed, annotated in her handwriting in the margins, with small notes that were her way of handing you the institutional memory she'd spent 6 years building. You recognized what she'd done, what it represented, how long it took. You sent her a text that evening, just, "Thank you for the binder." She sent back, "Don't mess up Domingo's route." You didn't. You drive home from the bank on a Tuesday afternoon in October with signed documents in a folder on the passenger seat and $2.7 million of structured obligations somewhere in a system you cannot yet fully see. The radio is on, a song you don't know. You turn it off. The drive home is 31 minutes on a good traffic day. Today is 28. You pull into the driveway. Dana's car is already there. Through the kitchen window, you can see her standing at the stove. You sit in the driveway for a minute, maybe two, not afraid, not relieved, something in between, the specific feeling of having stepped off solid ground and discovered that the thing you stepped onto is also solid, just solid differently, in a way that requires different muscles. You're not sure you have those muscles yet. You're going to build them. That's the only available plan. You pick up the folder, get out of the car, walk inside. She asks how it went. "Fine," you say. "Done." She hands you a wooden spoon and moves over at the stove. You stir whatever's in the pan. You don't know what it is yet. Something she started without you. That's most of it, honestly. That's most of how this goes. You sign the page, you drive home, you stir the pan. The $2.7 million sits in the structure, and the structure holds or it doesn't, and the only variable you actually control is how well you show up tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, you will show up. That was always the whole agreement.